In this episode, we want to talk to a partner user of a tool that we feel is going to just really help you to grow your business. Um, we're really excited to dive into this conversation with Alice Foeller, who's going to be talking to us about sharpspring. I'm super excited to hear what she's got to say. Let's dive right into the show. So, Alice, welcome. Thank you for coming into the show today. We really appreciate it. Let's just start by talking about you and who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo. Thanks for having me. This is a privilege, and I'm excited to be here. So my name's Alice Foeller, and I'm the owner and CEO of SiteInSight, and we're a company that helps small and medium businesses and also nonprofits with their web presence. So whether that's your website, email marketing, social media, all the kinds of ways that someone might reach customers, potential customers, and clients using the
Yeah.
web. That's where we like to support folks and have them really shine and outshine their competitors, or if they're kind of the little guy,
Right.
being able to sort of keep up with the big corporations and the kind of tools and methods that they're using.
Awesome. And I love the name Sight in Sight. What brought that name? It sounds like a really cool name, Sight in Sight. I'm not sure if I would have thought about that myself, but it's such a beautiful name. How did that name even come about?
Yeah, thanks. Well, when I started, I was really focused on search ranking and helping people show up higher in Google search. So, what I was thinking of was having your website be in view, like, on the first page of
Right.
Google, having it be in sight. And then I realized there was kind of a double meaning there, that we bring insight to the process, like we have experience and training and education in web and all those things, Google, and what makes your website show up in search and what makes it work well and all those things. So, um, yeah, that
That
was.
is that is super cool. That is super cool. And we actually got connected through a program that we participated in together, which is a 10 KSB program, and that's kind of like how we got connected. But we're here to talk about essentially how did we actually get here in this point, and just talking through like the tools that you have, the tools that you use to help other businesses grow. And there's one in particular that I'm super excited to hear about. So I want to dive right into it, and I want you to kind of talk to me around this particular tool and how you got to this point in using this tool. So let's just break the suspense and talk about what is this tool, and how did you find this tool and get to then being a super user or a partner with this particular tool.
Yeah, great. So the name of the tool, it's called sharpspring,
Hmm.
and it's an automated marketing tool. So if you Google automated marketing, like a whole bunch of stuff comes up, and it's basically, uh, I mean, it's a word, right? It's a phrase that means
Right.
something, but it doesn't really mean anything unless you learn a little about it.
Yeah.
So what it really means is that when someone takes an action, like they open your email or they put something in their shopping cart on your website or they answer your phone call or whatever it is, that sets off sort of like dominoes that you've set up that says, okay, they clicked on my Facebook ad. Now they go to this landing page. All right, they didn't fill out the form. So all right, so that's now like a dead lead. And then, oh, they did fill out the form. Okay, well now they get something cool back, like they get a coupon or something.
Right.
Um, and then if they take a different action or they sort of stall out, then you can set a timer and say, okay, well, if the person filled out the form, but then they didn't take any other action, then let's give them like 3 days. And then if they don't do anything else, now we send them a new email or we send them a new offer. So that kind of thing, which happens to all of us every day, we don't really think about what's making that happen.
Yeah.
But you go put a pair of shoes in your shopping cart on a website and then you don't check out, like, just wait. You'll get an email that says,
Right.
"Hey, you left this pair of shoes in your shopping cart. Like, did you want those?" And it has a picture of the shoes and it has your name. It's very personalized. It seems like someone in an office somewhere like was like,
Right.
"Ricardo,
I know.
those blue suede like shoes that you wanted are still in your cart. And here's a
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
Like, aren't they
How did
awesome?"
they know? Right.
Right. Yeah. How did someone spend all that time sending an email just to me? Right. So it's all that kind of customization, scheduling, workflow planning. And we do that all behind the scenes so that when you say, "Okay, I'm ready to kick off this campaign," then all those dominoes are lined up and then people take actions and it takes them on different paths. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure book, if anyone remembers those, that the customer then goes on.
Yeah.
And it's very customized and it just makes your company look really professional. It makes the customer feel really cared about, like it's a personalized experience and that you really value their business. So it's used in both retail, like the example with the shoes in the shopping cart, but it's also used in the service professional companies where you have a long sales cycle and sometimes people fall through the cracks, right? Like a lot of us
Yeah.
are running a small company. Maybe we're the only salesperson, or maybe we have like one part-time person and you send out a proposal and then nobody gets back to you and you're busy with 17 other things and you don't follow up and then the person's like, "Well, I guess they didn't really want my business," right? Like,
Right. Right.
but if you have that all set up ahead of time, so as soon as it's been 3 days since you sent the proposal, it sends another email to them, then you don't have to worry about that happening. So it's
No, and
got a
that's
lot of.
awesome. And you mentioned domino, sort of domino effect, and just sort of lining up like a domino. And that's the thing for a lot of small business, a lot of folks who are starting out, solopreneurs, and folks who may not have the marketing technology skill set within their department or their organization. You have to assume some of the events or all the events, if necessary, that your customer is going to take, or you want your customer to take. And there needs to be a system that actually helps you to execute those events, right? Because if the customer is not purchasing, then you want to figure out why, but you want to assume all these different events. And this tool that you're sharing, sharpspring, what you're basically saying to me, that this tool actually does that. It connects all of these events together for you and ensure that you don't forget, because you've got a million and one things doing and you can't always remember all these things, right? And so this is why I love about tool, because it actually helps you to then keep sharp on what's important for you in terms of getting closer to your goals, or getting to your goals as quickly as possible. But how did you find this tool? Like, how did you come about finding a tool like a sharpspring? Because it sounds like a really cool tool to be able to then jump in there as a business owner, or as someone who's not that tech savvy, and I could then do a lot, particularly just connecting all these different events. So how did you find it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wouldn't say I was looking for it,
Right.
but I was aware that automated marketing was becoming more popular and more necessary. And I would have clients who would use different tools. I mean, automated marketing, people have probably heard of some of the competing tools, HubSpot, Infusionsoft, which is now called Keep. Um, so there are other like big name tools that do the same thing. And sometimes I would have clients where I built their website and then they would sign up with one of the other tools and they would say like, "Oh my gosh, I need your help like getting, these landing pages over here, or what happens when the person goes from here to here, or I can't write enough content to fill up this, tool I bought and now it's asking me to write 3 blog posts a week and I don't have enough to write." So we would support our clients in using these types of tools and became more familiar with them, and we could
Yeah.
see how sometimes they were, we understood how much they cost, and whether that kind of worked or not, that sort of
Yeah.
pricing. So Yeah, I was just on the lookout for something. I'm always on the lookout, honestly, for something less expensive that has more
Right.
utility, because that's how I am. Like, I don't know, I'm kind of a cheapskate about things.
You're
Like,
an entrepreneur. That's
right,
all
if
it
I
is.
can get something for free or
Yeah.
less, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
that. So, and those are the kind of clients I have as well. And so I've always been looking like, well, if I were gonna recommend something to someone, what would I really look for? And with SharpSpring, one of the things they do is they actually utilize their own abilities of their own software to reach out to partners like me. So they would put, an ad that I saw on Facebook, and I'd click on it and they would know I clicked on it, right? And then they would be like, "Hey, are you interested in this like free workshop or video or whatever?" And then if I clicked on that, then I got put on a different, "Oh, this is a hot lead," and eventually they took me to lunch, like in real life,
Right.
because they're actually using their software wisely, and my lead score had increased to a certain amount where they were like, "Oh, if we take this lady to lunch, maybe we'll close the sale," which is exactly what a small business would want to do. So I could see, that it was working. They were being transparent about what they were doing with me. So I could see, like, oh, this is what I could do with my clients, and this is what my clients could do with their customers. So that's really how I became acquainted with them. And it I did all the comparisons, and, I look for a tool that integrates with a lot of other things. If something won't talk to something else, then it's like, eh.
Yeah.
Or if they want you to put all of your content on their tool, that's a red flag for me. Like, if
Right.
we want you to write all your blog posts and have them stored over here on our tool. Well, what if you want to cancel? Like, all your content is gone then. They own all your
Right.
stuff. So I always advise people to go with things where you're still owning your own work product and your own intellectual property.
Yeah.
And SharpSpring was very good about that. They were very good about treating the partners like me very well, um, in terms of not trying to sell my clients and undercut me or anything like that. So they're just, I don't know, everyone I've talked to there seemed like a really decent human being. And they had a
That's
lot of
awesome.
training. So I ended up, like, okay, like I'll pay the onboarding cost and get trained. And my staff became certified and trained, and so did I. And now it's something that we can offer to our clients, and they would sign up through us. And then ideally, we do more than just give them the license to the tool and say, "Here you go." Ideally, they have a budget to have us create content and beautiful landing pages and emails and
Right.
all those things.
Right. So that's amazing. So this tool, SharpSpring, um, talk to me a little about, like, who is the tool for, like, who would you say are the ideal users of this tool, like, who do we then say, hey, if you're a small business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're just kind of getting started out there, this is a really great tool to help you if you really don't understand how these marketing automation logics and strategies work. This might be the space for you to then spend time and just quickly just leap into growth by using a tool like this. So who would you say are ideal customers for this tool, or users rather?
Yeah, I can highlight three, sort of what we call them in marketing as personas, or like
Right.
containers, types of
Yeah.
people who might use. So, one would be retail. I have a consultant that I've brought on my team who's worked with SharpSpring for a decade, and he said something on our last meeting, which was every online retail you've ever used uses marketing automation. Um, so if you are a small retail business and you're not using it, like, that it just really struck me that he said that. It's like everyone's using something like this. And so when I come across a business that's not using something like this, it's like, oh, you're either using up a bunch of staff time trying to do this by hand, or you're just not keeping up. You're losing opportunities. So that's an easy one, right? Because you've got like abandoned shopping cart, you've got the person who's never bought from you before that you want to say like, "Oh, hey, how was your experience? Like, did you like the
Yeah.
delivery? Did you like the product?" Or someone who buys from you all the time, but they always get the same thing. Then you can be like, "Oh, okay, hey, you're always buying the celery, have you checked out, our dairy offerings? And then there's a person who buys in bulk or something, right? And you can put them in a different bucket and say like, oh, anybody who buys more than 5 of the same thing, let's send them a special email saying like, "Hey, would you like to talk to us about wholesale pricing?" So you can really divide people up and send them messages that are specific to them, because we've all gotten emails that are like, "Are you kidding?"
Right,
Like, "Do
right,
you know
right,
anything about me? Like, why are
right,
you
right.
sending me an email
Why
telling
am I
me."
getting this?
Right, telling me to buy, like, a diamond necklace when I, like, hardly ever wear any jewelry, like, that doesn't
Yeah,
make any sense. So retail's one. Um, the next one I would say, which is a lot of times people don't think about nonprofits as being viable clients. They're like, "Oh, are you just giving away your stuff for free?" Like, no, they're they're charities, but they have a budget and they have to do marketing also.
yeah,
Um, so nonprofits are great because they almost always have at least 2 audiences. There's always your donors and there's always the people that you're helping, and they're 2 different messages, 2 different ways to speak to people, 2 different things, and usually there are actually 5 audiences. There's, like, your board members, your, like, big private donors, your corporate sponsor type people, volunteers. So there are a lot of audiences in nonprofits, and this is really great. You can really use it as a donor management tool.
yeah,
There aren't a lot of great donor there are great donor management tools, but they're extremely expensive, and small nonprofits, it doesn't make any sense. It's like you can either use a crummy free Google spreadsheet, or you can use like a Blackbaud product that's way out of
right.
league for most. So this is a really great middle ground, and it brings in the tracking of each donor, or as it would be in a business, each prospective sale, as well as the marketing right alongside it. So you're sending the right message to the right group of people. So that would be my second category. And then the third one would be like any service business, from an attorney to a tree trimmer, right? Like if we take the tree trimmer example, um, okay, so I hired a tree trimmer. They came out and they trimmed my, backyard trees over my house. Well, a year from now, how often do you actually get something saying like, "Oh, hey, last year we trimmed your trees in April.
Yeah, yeah,
It's March. Like, would you like to schedule something?" I mean, that just doesn't happen. Those little guys, they don't do that work and they miss out on those repeat. Like, I probably had a great experience and perhaps I've forgotten the name of the place and now I just go Google and I find somebody else because I can't remember the name. But if they simply sent me an email a month before saying like, "Hey, I know you had a great experience with us last year. Do you need those trees trimmed again?" Right? Like those kind of really simple little things,
yeah.
but they don't get done a lot of times in service-based businesses. And this way you just set them up and they just like clockwork, it just happens.
This podcast is sponsored by MeisterTask, the most intuitive task manager on the web. MeisterTask is an easy-to-use project management tool, makes it easy and fun and colorful to get all your projects managed in one place. As an entrepreneur, I use MeisterTask to help me manage all of my projects. I can drag and drop different tasks. I can assign key people to the task. I can set deadlines and schedules and enjoy just beautiful colors while I do that. So if you are interested in trying MeisterTask, go to meistertask.com/DMT tools. That's meistertask.com/DMT tools. And you can sign up for a free trial when you upgrade to the pro plan. So get started for free today and invite your team members and get productive together. Sounds like you covered, like using those three categories. Sounds like you've covered a quite a ground, because this retailers and their service-oriented businesses, and then you've got your nonprofit. So you're basically just saying like anyone in those areas can essentially take advantage of this tool, right? And use it.
Yeah, anyone where you want to send the right message to a targeted type of audience at the perfect moment,
Yeah.
then you want to use something like this. Unless you have, 120 hours a week to sit there and handwrite separate emails to individual people.
Right.
But if you don't
Yeah.
have that, then I recommend an automated marketing tool, and I recommend sharpspring.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I always tell my clients and also just other business owners that, look, like, if you've got a product, and it needs to find the right fit, which is the customer, because all you're doing is you're acquiring customers and you're keeping them, but the product has got to have a right fit. And to have a good fit, you've got to have the right message, and to develop the right message, you can't write the right message every single day. Like, you've got to have a framework for that, and you need somewhere that you can put that then runs on its own. So while you're out there sort of talking with your bank or trying to raise some money, you have folks who are getting your emails and people are responding, or and that's just assuming these eventualities that needs to happen as you're building out your customer workflow. So that's really awesome. And I love that this tool could basically just do all of this for you. It sounds like it's like a best friend to have. Like, it sounds like it's a best friend to have in my business, that I can just sort of, or my assistant, just to say, hey, you really need to help me to get these work done. And it's kind of like, oh, I'm a tool. Like, you just put everything you need here, and we can actually help you. I'm curious to know, though, how is this different from, let's say, like the other tools, or the alternatives that are out there? How do you see this different from what others use currently?
Yeah, I don't have experience with every single other one, but I do have experience with some. And what strikes me as different is SharpSpring is very committed to being able to integrate with anything else. So, I mean, almost any other web-based anything that you have, you can make it talk to this. So I use something for my proposals that's kind of complex because I have like a whole, cover page about my company and a whole
Yeah.
like set of quoting items. And I don't really want to switch off of that and use something else. I've put a bunch of time into getting it set up, right? But I can have it talk to SharpSpring. And SharpSpring can talk to my QuickBooks, and SharpSpring can talk to my email. Um, it actually, this sounds a little creepy. It's not creepy in practice. I was a little afraid to
Right.
press the button to do it, but it kind of keeps an eye on my email.
Yeah.
So that seems creepy, but what it does is actually give me a timeline of every time that I've interacted with a potential lead, um, which is really helpful. And then it pulls those contacts in, right? So sometimes when you have a CRM and you're like, I'm going to use a CRM, like I'm going to get my whole sales process under control, and I'm going to start logging these things and putting
Yeah.
timeframes into place. You're sitting there like entering a bunch of data, right? Like you have to put in all of your leads. And with this, you don't have to, because if someone emails you, they get pulled into it creates a contact. It just creates a contact. It does it all for you, which is super amazingly great and easy. It talks to, if you have G Suite or you have Outlook 365, which is pretty much every business has one or the other of those.
Right.
It syncs with that. It pulls your contacts in. Um, so that's a differentiator. The timeline of interaction with the lead is a differentiator. Um, a sales funnel, kind of, they all sort of have that, right? Like you've got your steps in your particular sales funnel. It's highly customizable, way more than most things I've used. So
Yeah.
when I was using as a donor database for one of the nonprofits I work with, they had a lot of different fields. So when we talk about fields, I mean like a data, like name, first name, last name, address, phone. Those are all very standard. We all know
Yeah.
everybody has one of those. But then you have your own things in your own business, right? Like if you're a tree trimmer, you have what type of tree does the person have? If you
Right.
sell shoes, it's like, is it a man or a woman or a child? Um, and for this nonprofit, they had very specific things like it's a summer camp. So they had like, what was your camp song? And what year were you a counselor in training? And all these, nobody has a field pre-built for that, right? And we imported the records and it just created all the custom fields. Like it was like, oh, that's a field we don't have. We'll create it. There was no sitting there. It wasn't this like horrible, like awful process of trying to sync up the data. It just magically all flowed in and it was great. Their support is really good, like very helpful people who are just like, sure, we'll fix that for you. Like, we'll go in
Nice.
there and make that synchronization work because you can't figure it out. No problem. And they also like the pricing is just, it's not free for sure, but it's something people can afford. And I don't find that my clients are trying to get off of it because it's too expensive. I have had clients on other services where they're paying in excess of $1,000 a month just to have access to the service. And then they sort of complain to the service, to the tool, like, hey, this isn't worth it. And the people at the tool are like, well, you're not writing enough blog posts, or you're
Right.
not, like you're doing something wrong. And it's not, I haven't had that experience with SharpSpring. First of all, it doesn't cost that much. It's more like, 500 a month. And then you really, like what you were saying earlier about having things that you could just set up and they just work, or you have your assistant set them up. It's like when you've got a block of time and you're feeling strategic and you want to set up a workflow, you set up a workflow, you make the landing page or the email, and then that will work forever, forever. And then, maybe say 2 weeks from now, you have another block of time and you're like, oh, you know what? I want to set up another one of those. Well, now you have like twice as many Domino's configurations running. And then
Right.
you have another one. So you just keep building and building and building and getting more and more results for the same amount of money and a little investment of time. Or maybe you pay an agency like me to set those up for you. But it just keeps growing and working better and better. So
That's beautiful, and I love that you talk about the ability to talk to another tool. So which is super important, because then you may have something else going on in another tool, and you really want to then have this new tool talk to those other tools that you've been using, and the ability that this tool can do that. That's very good, because that becomes like a standard now. Like we all need these tools to be talking to each other. We need them to
yes.
be neighbors and friends, and so that they can communicate, because we all got a job to do. But those folks who are listening, um, and want to sort of use this tool, you mentioned earlier the tool is not free, and I think that obviously there's a lot of value in it, and I feel like this is definitely something that could be helpful. um, you mentioned again just sort of what's the tool going to cost small business. Talk to me a little about this sort of pricing. Is there a tiered, is just one fee? Like how does it work for someone who want to get into this tool and start using it?
Yeah. It's not free. There are a lot of free things. I mean, if people are at the point where
Absolutely.
they just want to try a free thing, like there's a million free things, and I think that's great. Everybody starts out there. And
Yeah.
I sure did too. I used a free CRM for a long time. And there just comes a point where you're like, hmm,
Right.
I really think these other features would produce revenue for me. If I had someone who could nurture these leads along, and that someone were a robot that didn't need to eat or take vacation, like, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it does cost money, and it is kind of like a next level sort of tool. So when your business is ready to grow to the next level where you're done kind of having you're past the point where you're like, "Oh, I don't want to add any more email subscribers because it's going to push me up into the $15 a month," right? Like we all kind of were there at some point where we're like, "Oh no, I'm at 2,999, better stop." Instead of like, "Wow, I'm doing great. Like I'm have all these leads." So when you're at that point where you have leads and you want to nurture them and you're ready to pay for something that's going to bring together the tracking and the CRM side with the marketing and the creating the content side, this really does it together in a way that's just superior. And it is about $500 a month, depending who you work with. I mean, usually you sign up through an agency like me, and people can charge different amounts, but just to get access to to have your license. And the other thing about SharpSpring is you get unlimited seats. It's not like if you have a company with 20 people, and you want them all to have access to it and be using it, that you have to pay 20 times as much money. It doesn't work like that, which is really great. I mean, I love not counting so many things you use. You go to add another person on your
Yeah.
team or you hire someone, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I'm past the amount of the economy plan, right? And now all of a sudden it's going to cost me like,
Right.
$1,000 a year to keep using this thing I was using for free. So SharpSpring is really great about that. You can add as many people in your company as you want, and without it charging extra. There are some extra things like when it syncs with your mail, you pay like, I don't know, $12 a month for that or something. There's little add-ons and they're usually worth it. And then, your actual cost to use it, if you're going to get support, I mean, if you're not a designer and you don't know how to make an email that's really going to appeal to a person, or you're not technical enough to insert the picture of the shoes from the cart, because it can do that, right? Like if you're a travel agency and somebody's looking for a trip with their kids to Disney, and then you send them a picture of an Alaskan cruise because that's what your email template has, like that's not appealing. Like that's not what
Yeah.
they're looking for.
Not what they're
But
looking for.
yeah, but you can have it if someone picked like, I have 2 kids, it can send them a picture of a family on vacation with 2 kids. So, but if you don't have the technical chops to know how to insert these variable dynamic pictures and words, then you'll want to work with the agency that you signed up with to actually provide that kind of support. And then you're getting, into maybe a couple $1,000s a month to kind of do those things. And really, if you do any business classes, they often tell you that marketing should be about 10% of your budget for the year if you're trying to grow. So it's certainly not outside of that. And a lot of times people can also shift over spending from, be surprised how many like really reliable good businesses in the community are still advertising on yellow pages,
Yeah.
things like that, right? They've been spending money on something for so long, they do it automatically. And
Yeah.
if you really kind of take a little audit of like, where am I spending my marketing money? Like, is that getting me anything? Um, Sometimes it's not that hard to shift a few $100s over to digital, which digital is, you can measure it. Like, it's working. That old adage about half of your marketing budget is working, you just don't know which half.
Right.
It's not true in the digital space, right? Like that's true on TV or radio
Yeah.
or, sending door-to-door flyers or something. Like you don't know if people are seeing that, and that's why they called you, but you sure do know if they click on something. You know exactly. I mean, that's the beauty of SharpSpring is it's not like I know that someone from, Atlanta or someone from Central Florida clicked on my Facebook ad. Like I know it was Ricardo. Like it,
Right. Right.
yeah. So
Absolutely. That sounds pretty amazing. It sounds pretty cool. Like it definitely seems worth it. Then when you think about the cost of hiring someone to help you to do some of your marketing and some of your sales, and you start weighing that and say, you're just starting out or you have these different issues that you need to resolve. As a solopreneur or a small business owner, you can start weighing those kind of costs, and you'll find value as to what you're saying in just having a tool like this to be in your back pocket, essentially, that you can rely on, that never lets you down. And the return on it sounds fantastic, because all of these different tasks that you can add to this tool, if you start thinking about them, like quantifying them, you realize that it might be 3 4 5 people that you may have to kind of get on your team to help you out. So that's pretty awesome. And the fact that you use this tool in your business, that also shows that the kind of belief you actually have in this tool. And we really appreciate you sharing that with our user. Now, Alice, so my final question to you is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you, and what would the answer for that be?
I love that question. We always ask that in journalism. That's my background. I started out as a newspaper reporter.
Right.
We would always ask at the end, like, what did I not ask you? Um, I think just to help people to see that there are different aspects of even online marketing, even within online marketing, right? Like you're trying to find a partner, and a lot of people feel like, well, I don't know how to do this, so I don't even know what I'm looking for. Why does one person charge $10,000 and one person charges $2,000? Like people will say like I'm not smart enough to know the difference, or I don't understand this computer stuff. And
Yeah.
I always tell people like I can't build a car, but I know how to drive mine really well. Like you have a lot of experience with receiving emails and seeing ads online and going to buy something on the internet. I mean, almost
Yeah.
everyone has experience trying to find the person who trimmed their trees last year, or my hot water heater went out at 1 o'clock in the morning. What do I do?
Yeah.
So we have lots of experience. So you know what your customers want from you, and the fact that you don't know how to build it or set the dominoes up so that they go off, like that's okay. That's why you partner with people who do.
Yeah.
Um, but I think people don't know what to look for always. Like, how do I know I can trust this person because I don't understand what they're doing? So are they just trying to kind of scam me and I'm paying them all this money and I don't understand what they're doing? So, um, like one thing I like to tell people is just the different aspects of online marketing or websites. There's like the design. So sometimes you'll have agencies that are really heavy on design people, right? Like they're very artistic. Everything's really creative. They have like their furniture in the shape of their logo, all their stuff is gorgeous. They make you these beautiful graphics. And that's super important. Like the way that you're presenting yourself,
Yeah.
really that's how your customer decides what they think of you. And then you have like the really technical side, right? Like you've got the guy writing the code in the cave in the back, right? Who makes all the stuff work together. And that's super important because if you have a shopping cart and you can't check out, like you're not
Yeah.
making any money. So
Yeah.
that stuff's important too. Um, so how I present my company or what our strengths are is really having both of those things, design and technology, in the service of communication and having that communication be first. What's the message? Who are we talking to? How are we speaking to them? What's our personality? When I'm writing as if I'm your company, what is that voice that you want to give and portray? And then we'll get the design side and we'll get the technology side. But what's really important is me being able to understand what your business does and what you're trying to convey. So I would just advise people to look for that in an agency. I think sometimes you can go too far to the pretty design side, or you can go too far to the technology chops, like super duper,
Yeah.
AI side. And I think it's important to have a balance of those things and really just your agency should want to understand about your business. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. I think our listeners will definitely appreciate trying, giving SharpSpring a shot. Obviously, you want to get to SharpSpring, so help us to find out how do we get to SharpSpring. How do we get to you? Because I know you are the master user, the master partner for SharpSpring. So tell us, how do we get to this tool by getting to you?
Yeah, you can go either way. You can go straight to SharpSpring by just searching up SharpSpring, and they have tons of videos and educational like webinars that you can go to and things like that. And you can click all around their website and see their demos. Or you can start with like eventually you'll want to sign up through an agency, marketing agency of some kind anyway, to get that kind of support. Like nobody wants to set up all the,
Yeah. Yeah.
DNS records at their domain name themselves. Like people should don't do that yourself.
Right.
So we'd love to have you if you'd like to sign up through Site Insight. We can support anywhere in the English speaking world. Um, and our website is site, SITE, insight, INSIGHT.com. And we got a contact page. And if you fill out the form, you'll not be able to tell, but that'll be a SharpSpring form. And it'll pull your information into our SharpSpring system, and you'll be a new lead and you'll get all the follow up that you would expect because we have a great system.
Awesome. And that's a good way to see the system in motion. So it's site it's site insight, right?
Mhm.
And so SiteInSight.com, or you can do SharpSpring, SharpSpring. Any of those two will get you to Alice, and she'll definitely be able to help you. That's the thing I love about partners that I know and experts, because they know how to speak your language. So You don't have to worry about any tech jargons. And I mean, if we did mention anything that was kind of too jargon for you, you have to give us a feedback and let us know. But it was very simple conversation, Alice, that we had, and I'm really grateful for you spending time talking to us about this. So thank you so much, and definitely looking forward to hearing some of the feedback that we'll get from listeners about this tool when they get a chance to try it.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Ricardo. It's great to talk to more people about the kind of trends that are going on, and businesses that are looking to grow. What are the things that other businesses are doing to be successful? And this is one of those things. So I'm really happy to support other businesses in learning what the trends are and what kind of bandwagon to jump on. And I think this is a really solid bandwagon to jump on.
Okay, awesome. Glad you liked it. All right, so that's it, folks. We'll definitely see you soon. Until next time, find a tool that's going to help you to rule and grow and change the world. All right, talk soon. That was Alice Foeller, CEO of SiteInsight, a partner with sharpspring. That was a beautiful, insightful conversation indeed about how sharpspring could really revolutionize your business. We are so happy and grateful for Alice taking her time to be on the show. We'll definitely be sharing with you another tool that can rule and revolutionize your business. And so we're looking forward to having that conversation with you in another episode in your favorite podcast tool next time.